Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel Dykes. I am a labor and delivery nurse by day, and otherwise I read lots of books, and there are lots of books next to me right now because we are doing the best thing of the year. We are reviewing my 2025 best and worst reads. Heavy emphasis on the best. I'm only going to go over like my DNFs and my 2 stars, which was the lowest rating that I gave this year. So then I'm going to go over all 42 of my 5 stars pretty briefly until we get to the top 10, which in the past I've done like best of each month and then told you like a favorite. But this year there were months I think it was June that I had like 6 or 7 5 stars. And so then like some of those were my best books of the year, but because something else just beat them out that month, they don't get the recognition. Like that doesn't feel fair. So without further ado, we're gonna try to blast through this. So the lowest ranked of my 5 stars, and these are just like on emotions today. Like I literally just put them in sticky note order of what I was feeling today. So this could change tomorrow, and if you really press me on it, I'm sure I would change things. The bangs are rogue today, so we'll try to only touch them if they're like actively in my eyeball, which they have been. So we'll see how it goes. So the first of my 5 stars was A Curious Beginning. This is the first of the Veronica Speedwell books. And I gave it 5 stars because honestly, it delighted me. So I think this is set like early 20th century. Not 1000% sure. But in a time that women are not forthright or independent, and Veronica is both of those things. So her aunts die, and so she's kind of like left alone in the world, which she doesn't care because she's like super independent anyway. So she ends up like entangled in this mystery. It feels like there's a romance coming in the next few books. Like there was just a lot of things that were really delightful. The audiobook was great, so I will be continuing in that series. It was a good time. I read Revenge of the Tipping Point. This is a 20-year like revisit to a topic that he wrote about 20 years ago. And that was a great book, and this was also a great book. So he kind of talks about how this is over stories, super spreaders, and the rise of social engineering. So like kind of like people that don't fit into the theory of the tipping point. And it's really interesting to have an author kind of critique their own work. So this was super interesting. One of the stories was the COVID super spreaders, which made COVID even harder to deal with. So yeah, I just, every once in a while, like I don't read a ton of nonfiction. It's really not my favorite, but when it's presented more in like a story form, I'm in. So that was one of my 5-star nonfictions. One of my favorite authors released a book this year, yes, because Emily Henry is an automatic read for me, and so I read this immediately when it came out. It did not take me long to read it. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't put this super high in like her books, but it was still a 5-star. I just had a great time with it. The romance was good. The storyline was good. And when people say like, oh, it kind of ripped off Evelyn Hugo, well, good news. That was also a 5-star book for me. So I had no problem with that. So Emily Henry, Great Big Beautiful Life. I've owned this memoir and wanted to read this memoir for a while, like kind of embarrassingly long. So Kelly Bishop, who her real name is Carol Bishop, and like Kelly, like looking back at it now, I'm like, Kelly is such a like trendy name. So super interesting that she picked that. So if you know, which you should, because you should watch Gilmore Girls. It's one of the best shows that's ever been on television. I've rewatched it multiple times. You should watch it. So she is the 3rd Gilmore Girl. So she plays Lorelai's mom in the series. And the dynamics between those 2 women are more interesting than between Lorelai and Rory. So this hits on kind of her role in Gilmore Girls, but it also is like the rest of her life story. And she was one of the inspirations for the Broadway play a chorus line. She was a dancer that they studied to make it. So I feel like I need to watch that now. And she just seems like a delight. So it was great. It was a good time. This book is an example of when you read the right book at the right time, it just hits differently. So I gave this book 5 star. I think I had read a bunch of like dry books around this, and I picked this up and it felt like a breath of fresh air. So this is the first in the, I think it's like the Bastard series by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren is my favorite writing duo. This is Beautiful Bastard, which is hard to tell when you're like in the store trying to buy books and the name is like whited out. So I don't love that design. Like, just say it with your full chest. Beautiful Bastard. This is a workplace romance. I think this one's the enemies to lovers. Oh my God, it was so good. So the smut is good, the story was good, and it wasn't long, and I feel like I just breezed through it and it felt perfect. Big Fan is a short story. Like, it's like 100 pages. Quick, perfect. Sorry, the Christmas tree is an actual problem right now. So Maya is a political strategist, and she's coming off a really messy divorce, and she runs into like somebody from her past who's like a really big actor, and it's just a perfect romance, and it's super short. So, so good. I often submit my name to Goodreads for the books that you can win, the competition, not competitions, but you know what I mean. So when I saw that Julie Soto had an arc that was in there, I put my name in, never thinking I would get it. So I won, and they actually do send you the book. I thought maybe it was a scam. I don't know what the scam would be because they don't take your money, but this came, and I got to read it before it actually released because this is an advanced reader copy. Fuzzy. So Julie Soto wrote Not Another Love Song, which is like one of my favorite romances. She also wrote a Hermione fiction that I love that is now Rose in Chains. That was, I think, published this year. I have not read that yet. I have a hard time with the Hermione fiction in the real world because I like it being Hermione. So when they have to rewrite it to fit something else, I just don't know that I'm going to love it, which is why Alchemized is still on my TBR and has not been read. But The Thrashers is a YA book, so our main character is kind of like outside of her group of friends. So like she's in it, but she's never fully fit in. And when someone in her group of friends is accused of murder, they start investigating everyone. A bunch of these secrets come out. This is a great YA thriller. I gave it 5 stars. This felt like it filled a hole that Good Girl's Guide to Murder left. So I heard about Magnolia Parks a lot on the TikTok, and this is I believe it's a British book. She's an Australian native. Interesting. I feel like this is like really, well, it's set in Britain, so that might be part of it. So Magnolia Parks, that is her name. She's like a sassy little socialite who she is the main character, and you are not going to forget it, okay? And the next book in the series was Daisy Hates, so that's also named after a character, and then there are more after that. So I will be continuing to read the story. Sorry, Mabel needs to be held at all times. Poor girl. So this book was delightful because Magnolia is just this rich socialite. There's an Instagram page that's dedicated to the outfits that she's wearing. So if you want to see like what designer stuff she's wearing in the series. So I found that to be a delight as well. And it was a delight kind of the whole way through. It's like mixed media with like text messages and different things. Magnolia and BJ have been in love their entire lives, but they're not currently together in the book. And so you're trying to like unpack like what could have gone wrong for these people to not be together. And then there is a twist at the end. Magnolia finds out some more information, and it truly shocked me. Like, I think I dropped the book. I was just really invested in this series, and so I gave it 5 stars for shock value alone. Loved it. This month I read The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose. This is the 3rd in the series. I believe there's 4 out right now. This is truly a delight. So our main character is a little neurodivergent queen who takes everything super literally and loves her job as a maid so much. So she keeps getting in the middle of these murder investigations. And this book's a little bit different because it's not a murder investigation, but it is, like, we do unpack a lot of secrets about her and her grandmother's past who raised her. The audiobook was great. It's just a delightful cast of characters. But I wouldn't say it's cozy. Like, the stakes are high, which I think is why I love it. She's just a delightful character. So that's one of my most recent 5-star reads. I opened the year by reading Heartbreak is a National Anthem. This was like a very short book that was written by Rob Sheffield, who's been following her. I think he writes for Rolling Stone magazine. This book it kind of like broke down the fandom, the lore, like the Eras Tour was happening already. So it was like the first half of the Eras Tour. And I cried at multiple points in this book because I just love Taylor Swift. And it was really well written and like written, not necessarily from a fan's point of view, but like somebody who really respects her. And I loved it. If there's one reality show that I love to watch and just yell at the TV, it's Sister Wives. So I was watching this when it was on TLC when it started, and I don't know why, but this family has just like really caught my attention. And recently, shout out to Jamie, I got an HBO login, and so I've caught up on the last like 10 seasons because they're in like season 21 right now. And spoiler alert, 3 of the 4 wives have now left Cody, and what a delight that has been for me. So Christine Brown Woolley has always been my favorite sister wife, and she wrote not like a tell-all, but she wrote a memoir, and she did not hold back. Like, this is the stuff that I kind of figured was happening, but hearing it actually written out is like, why did you stay so long? Like, this is an awful situation for pretty much all involved. I mean, except for Cody, he had a great life. So I read this on my Disney vacation, and it was like such a good, like, it kept me invested. It was perfect for vacay because it was like I could pick it up right where I left off, and it kept me reading. I would love to read a memoir from every one of these women because it's like this tiny little cult that they were in. So interesting. And just the dynamics of having multiple women in a house and the way that Cody played them. 5 stars. This book was originally going to be called Wet. And it was spicy. There was a lot more hype about this because I think she like acted like it was gonna be like really like graphic. And it was perfectly well written. I don't feel like she like overpromised or underdelivered. It felt amazing. Our main characters, one is a swimmer and one is a diver at, I think, is it Harvard? I'm not sure what school it is, but they're trying to like get into the Olympics and they're falling in love, and this book was just like perfect. It was so good, so steamy, well done. Allie Hazelwood is an automatic read for me. They don't always hit like this, but this one hit. One of my favorite authors who feels underrated to me is V.E. Schwab, Victoria Schwab, when she writes for YA. And yes, I have read most of her YA as well because they are good. She writes more like speculative fiction. So we have like vampires, or like it's like we're not in a fully fantastical world, but there is a fantastical element to it. And they're just like a little spooky. So even before I knew what this was about, I was in. But Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil we follow 3 different female vampires throughout like centuries and how their stories come together. It is sapphic romance, but there's also just like so much more in it. And it's so good. It was so good. I mean, like, this book read so fast. This was one of my books that I like didn't want it to end as I was reading. I love vampires. Where the Library Hides was one of my most anticipated reads. I got this as an add-on for Book of the Month because What the River Knows, I think, was the first one. And that one was a 5-star. I love it so much. I don't know about you, but I feel like growing up in the 90s, like, Egypt was presented to us as like the most magical place in the world. And especially like Cleopatra and all that lore, like I imprinted hard on that. So this book and the previous are set in Egypt, but in like the 1800s, and our main character is trying to figure out what's going on with her parents because there's a lot of shady business, and she's like traipsing around Egypt with this man who's supposed to be like protecting her, but really doesn't like her, but then they're also falling in love. It's so good. I love this series. So this was actually written in 2024, but I think like November, December. So I got to this pretty early. I think I read this right away in January. Oh, it was so good. It was perfect. So this duology is amazing. If Egypt and mystery and romance sound good to you, there is a tiny sliver of fantasy, like a little like mystical element with Cleopatra. I wouldn't say it's fantasy, but there is an element. It's a duology, which I love. I love when the story's not enough for one, but we don't try to go into like a series of like 10 books. If you watched my December recap, you already know about Before I Let Go. This is by Kennedy Ryan. I think this series is 3 books. I think it's like set on different characters. So it's hard with the glare, but this is a gorgeous cover. Our main character, Yasmin, and her husband Josiah got divorced after a child loss, and now they're trying to navigate life. They still like own a restaurant together, and they're also like a few years removed now, and they're like, am I still in love with you? Unsure. And trying to like navigate that and like trying to move on and like what's the healthiest. And it is a delight to see 2 adults in a romance, because nobody's trying to like play around with feelings or get back at each other. Like there are definitely like emotions and like fears for sure, but it felt like a very mature book, and I really loved it. I think this is my only other 5-star nonfiction. Please look at this cover. This is gorgeous. So No More Tears. This is the story of Johnson & Johnson being a-holes. And this book, I think I started crying reading this book because it is so horrendous, the things that have been allowed to happen to Americans and then covered up for the sake of profit. And I mean, from the baby powder debacle to vaginal mesh on women, Tylenol, which that's also a big deal right now in medicine, vaccines. I get why the American people have a hard time trusting because of the shit that's been pulled in the past. But No More Tears was such a good nonfiction, and I do recommend the audiobook. The audiobook was amazing, and I think it would have been a little bit drier to read it, but it was so good to listen to. Again, a December read that you probably have recently heard about, The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. This is a set at Christmas disappearance mystery with like enemies to lovers. This was my best book of December. I feel like this book should get like most surprising, like blew me away. I read this after reading a bunch of kind of like mediocre books where I felt like they were all fine. Like there wasn't not that much to criticize. They just didn't, there were no butterflies, there's no feet kicking, there's nothing that you're like excited about. And then I read this, and this has been on my physical TBR for years. Like to the point that the second one is out, and now I own it because this one blew me away. I loved the premise so much. So this is like Greek gods are making humans like fight for them in not like an Olympics, but like just a competition that they hold every year. And our main character like doesn't have powers and is supposed to be like fighting, and she is fighting for, I'm so excited about this book that I like can't even speak. So she's fighting for Hades, who has never entered this competition before, and their dynamic together and like the lore that she's trying to unpack is amazing. It was so good. Like the competition element really keeps the story moving, and you just don't know what to expect. And then shit hits the fan at the end, and now I need to read the second one. So it is on my TBR for this month. I'm excited. Another perfect duology. What is the first one called? For some reason, A Fate Inked in Blood. So this is like Viking romantasy. So there is fantasy to it because the gods have like imbued people with different powers. And our main character is a freaking badass. And in the end of the second book, you find out that she was blessed by not one god, but two. So she has powers that she didn't know about. And then she finds out, and then she finds out more powers. And there is the most amazing, like there's a love triangle, but it's not really a love triangle because like two people are in love, but she's married to somebody else. And there's a lot of dynamics with that. There is so much in this duology that I love. So if you like Vikings and a little bit of fantasy and like gods getting in the way when they shouldn't, so good. Girls with Bright Futures. I read this book because I thought it was written by an author that wrote another book that I love so much. Turns out their graphics are just similar. This is how my TBR for so long, and I thought it was written by someone else, and so I read it. And I'm glad I did because it was so amazing. So Girls with Bright Futures is this prep school, and everyone's trying to get into Stanford. But Stanford only has like 2 slots because they're taking a bunch of athletes. They're taking a bunch of athletes, and so there's only 1 slot left for the normies. And we have a scholarship kid that should get it because she's a genius. We have the person who employs her mom, who just wants her kid to get in it because it's like a legacy statement thing. We have another kid who her mom is like forcing her, like she's pushing this girl so hard that she like has anxiety and like is losing her hair. And so she's like qualified for it, but also like an absolute mess, and her mom is insane. So these people are like all trying to get in this school and like competing, and then our main character's daughter is like run down by a vehicle. And so you're trying to figure out like who did it, who has the motives. These parents are crazy, and all in the name of getting into Stanford. And it's just really, it's an interesting character study. I read so fast and I loved it. Another book that really surprised me, Is She Really Going Out with Him? This was a book of the month book that I got, and I think I got it as an add-on because everyone was raving about this book. Are you okay? Yeah, you're okay. And so our main character, Anna, is just out of a messy divorce. She is like hanging on by a thread, and she has like a work nemesis, and she pitches an idea that she'll go on 7 dates and her children will choose the dates. And it's so good. So it's like kind of an enemies to lover, like workplace romance with just honestly like the most delightful things happening on these dates. So it was so good. And it's so nice to see like children represented in a way that like they're definitely part of the story, but they're not like a hindrance. They're not in the way. It was so good. I loved it. One of my favorite series is the Nevermore series, and Silverborn came out this year. I was waiting for a paperback because I own all paperbacks, so I waited like an extra 6 months to get this book. So our main character, Morrigan Crow, is it's similar to Harry Potter because we're in a magic school. So she lived in like an alternate town and was raised to believe that she would die when she turned, I think, 10 years old. Well, but then on the eve of her birthday, she's like swept away and brought to this other place with magic. And we're unpacking all sorts of things all the time. And she's like learning about her powers. And this book did not disappoint. It was so good. I think there's going to be like 7 books. I would probably read 100. I love it. I love the characters. So good. This is an old book that I just read for the first time. So in the Bible, Jacob has 12 sons. Well, he also has a daughter, Dinah. This is her story. It was super interesting to hear the story from the perspective of a woman and all of the different like rites and rituals that they did, birth, and just the way that the story plays out it's so good. I really loved this book. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't read it in school like other people did. Another super well-loved book for the year, The Wedding People. So our main character is coming off of a divorce, and she is going to a hotel that she's always wanted to go to, and her plan is to unalive herself when she's there. And she gets like embroiled in this wedding party because she's the only person not in the wedding party at the hotel, so they assume she's part of it, and she becomes part of it, and it was just like a fun, beautiful story. Yeah, it was good. So My Friends is the story of a painting and the people that are depicted in it and their lives playing out, and a girl who has forever loved this artist in this painting, and her becoming part of this like family of misfits and artists, and just really like people. It was a beautiful story. P.S. I Hate You by Lauren Connolly. This is a story of enemies to lovers. They're grieving someone that they love. So our main character's brother dies of cancer, and his best friend and her are sent on kind of like a bucket list of trips that they're supposed to do for the brother. And the brother knows about their history, and so I think he's trying to get them back together. And guess what? It works. But the book wasn't what I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be like, oh, we do this series of things and we fall in love. But it was like over, I think, a year or two. And so it was really nice to see them like grieving in an organic way, but also fulfilling this list. And like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm taking 6 months off of my job to do this. They were just like fitting it in between their lives, which just makes way more sense to me. And yeah, I really liked it. There was like a miscommunication trope, which probably put it further down the list than what I maybe, like I love this book, but that's kind of what made me rank it a little lower. There are not many like thrillers or mysteries on this list. They're just not my favorite genre, but they also haven't been done like this one. One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware, I will read. It's either great or bad, and there's no in between for me. So like 0 Day, I think, was one of her recent ones. That was awful. I hated it. 1 by 1 was good. Like, she has a lot of really good ones, but One Perfect Couple was so good. So this is a couple who honestly really don't have business being together. But the main character is like a scientist who works really hard. Her boyfriend is an actor who's trying to make it. And so he convinces her to go on this like dating show. So it's like this like reality TV show that you go to this island and you compete and you get crowned one perfect couple. Well, things happen, and the beginning of the competition is like so interesting, and I loved it so much. And then it gets completely derailed by weather, and oh my gosh, like the stakes are so high. It was so good. I read it as an audiobook, which is why I don't have a copy of it, and it was so good. So that's probably my best thriller of the year. I'm pretty sure. Unless another audiobook comes up that I like can't physically see right now, but it was so good. You should read it. Abby Jimenez has also become an automatic read for me. This came out on like March 30th, and I read it on my birthday this year in Las Vegas, which was such a delight. So I basically like cracked this cover in the morning and finished it by the end. So I feel like a one sitting read automatically gets a 5-star, and this was a delight. Our main character meets this guy that she like falls in love with, but then she has to move cross country to take care of her mom who has Alzheimer's. And so the family is like all coming back to take care of her. But she just like met the love of her life. So it's like, what do you do with that? This was such a good book. I loved it. So yeah, there is a love story, but the love story actually almost felt second to the family love story. And so that was also just a really nice element. Speaking of Good Girls Guide to Murder, Holly Jackson wrote that book. And when I heard that she was coming out with her first adult novel, I was on board. I loved this book. I couldn't put it down. The premise was amazing. I've never seen someone else do a premise like this. So our main character is, I want to say her name is like, Jet. Jet is home. She kind of feels like her life has failed. Her parents put on like this ridiculous like carnival every year. So she goes to that, she helps. And then when she comes home from that, she's attacked. And her attack has left her with like, she is alive, but she is going to die. So she knows that and she has a week left. And so she decides she's gonna like solve her own murder. It's so interesting. And like, what do you do and what can you do when there's no stakes for you? And like, what do you do with this one wild and precious life? Like, this was such a good book. And Holly Jackson really committed to it, and bravo, 5 stars. This was an actual like delight while being awful. Another immediate January 5-star was Dinner for Vampires. Bethany Joy Lenz was on One Tree Hill for 9 seasons, and she's one of my favorite characters. So for me, it would be Brooke and then Haley. Like that's it. That's the characters. And this is a story of her life in a cult while filming One Tree Hill. And so there's some like One Tree Hill stuff in here, but also it's absolutely ridiculous to think of what was going on behind the scenes that you just had no idea. She's just filming a hit TV show. And it's so good. So I've heard that you absolutely need to listen to the audiobook. I have been listening to her for like 20 years already. So I could very easily just like play her voice in my head. But gosh, I love a cult story. I do. Another January 5-star from last year, Glow of the Everflame. This is the second in the Kindred's Curse saga. We have no end in sight for the last book, which is supposed to be coming out. This book was the most perfect in the series so far. So the other ones I've given like 4.5 stars, where it's like, oh, they're so close to perfect. This one was perfect. It was. And I don't actually know what happens in this book as opposed to the other. Like I can remember the general storyline, but I can't really like piece it together. I know at the end of book 1, we had a huge shock. And so this is dealing with the aftermath of that. And I don't think anything physical has happened yet in the first 2 books. But the angst and if a kiss happens in here, it is like, and it's electric. Like you feel it through the pages. It is so good. This series is amazing. And by the time the 4th one comes out, I might have to reread all of them because they are so good. Please release the last one. Books with skulls and flowers felt like they were really trending this year. So it was hard to like weed out the ones I wanted to read. But this was the one. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I feel like it just kept coming up, which is why I chose to read it. And it was perfection. So we have a competition. We have like devils and spirits, and they're using your fears against you. We have really high stakes. We have magic. I believe it's set in New Orleans, and we have romance. We have sex. This was such a good book. This had everything in it. I loved it. So before I do the top 10, I wanted to go over the 5 books that I DNF'd for the year. So, and if you hear a lot of weird noises, that's just my heater. When you live in a 150-year-old farmhouse, everything's loud. So I DNF'd A Little Life most recently. That people like actually love that book so much. I was 100 pages into 800 pages, and I couldn't really sort out the characters yet and didn't care what happened to them. And I was like, I don't want to read this. And then one of my friends gave me the synopsis. So I just don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything. But if you love that book, I'm so glad you love that book. It's just not my genre. I also DNF'd The Hurricane Wars, which does seem like it would be up my alley because I love fantasy. I just did not like the way it was written. It felt like very clunky and I couldn't get into it. And then I like looked at the Goodreads rating and was like, oh, it's not just me. And so I just decided that there were so many other books to read and I chose not to continue. I started listening to Slaughterhouse-Five and it made me feel insane. And I stopped listening to it and was like, you know what? Not all classics are for me. And I think maybe if I read it physically, it would be better, but why? Why? I'm not in a class. No one's forcing me to read that. And then I DNF'd Liquid: A Love Story, which I think I got maybe 10 pages into that and I hated the writing and I kind of hated the main character. And then I looked at the ratings on Goodreads and it was very low. And it didn't sound like a book that I would like. So I just finished it. And I think that was actually the first one that I DNF'd. And then I kind of went on this streak of DNFing after that. And it felt very freeing. And I have to say that 6 months later, I have no regrets. So they're not books I will be picking back up. Sometimes when I DNF a book, it's just like the vibe or the audiobook author is driving me crazy. And then I'll go pick it up again. These are not books that I plan to revisit. The last one is Throne of Jade. So it's by Naomi Novik, who I love so much. She wrote Uprooted and Spinning Silver. They're like fairy tale retellings that are so good. The first one is like so this series is about dragons and dragon riders, and it is incredibly dry. I think that if I listened to it, I could probably get through it. But I was reading like ebooks and the first one was fine. Like I liked the characters, which made me keep reading. It was an interesting world, but there was like not a spark that kept me coming back for more. And so when I started reading Throne of Jade, and it was like, it's a long book to be that dry. And so I just decided to be done with it. So my worst books, from least worst to most worst. So I have Christine by Stephen King, which is the story of the car that murders people. And I didn't, like, it was like spooky, scary. Like I've never been scared of a car before. But it took like 400 pages to lead up to that. And then she went on her murder spree and I was over it by then. I wanted the book to be done. So that's why. Then I read Witch Haven, which had all of the elements that I love, and it's still, like, I was falling asleep during it. It was boring, and it started to reveal some things at the end, and I was like, you know what, I'm not curious enough to read the next one. So I may question that for the rest of my life, but it was boring. And it was like witchcraft and secret societies and like girl power, like all the things I love so much. Nope. The Secret History, gosh, these last three are tied for a top. They're all awful. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, that one is like on a bunch of people's lists as like really great book, and I hated it. I hated it the whole way through. At some point it became more of a hate read than just reading because I wanted to. I should have DNF'd that book. But I just really wanted to see if there was something at the end that redeemed it because so many people speak so highly of it. But not me. Not me. So it's like a Greek class and they murder someone when they're high. And it seems like that should be interesting, but it's not. And the way that they tell the story is super boring. And the characters are boring. And at one point, they have like a throwaway incest comment and they just leave it. And it's like, that brother and sister are having sex and we're not revisiting that. Like, it was just like a flyby comment. I would read that book. I have read that book. And it piqued my interest more. And then I had Penitence. That was one of my recent reads. I really didn't like it. So our main character is the mom of a child who murders her brother. They're like 14 and 15, and she murders the brother, and it feels like that would make for a good story, and it didn't. And there's lots of other secrets and lies, and we don't really unpack them. We just skirt around them really boringly. And my my most hated book of the year, and I will say hated. I feel like I should take a star off. This book was awful. So Trust. It won the Pulitzer Prize, which honestly, the more awards things win, the less it's for me. So I apply that to movies and I apply that to books. And that doesn't mean that, like, I respect the fact that other people might think that this is a great book. I hated it. So it was 4 parts, and it was like a book, another book, a book about the book, and then like, hey, this is a fake book. It was boring as hell. And I think it was so that you like didn't know what was true, but I just didn't care. So those are my worst books. Back to the good ones. So in my top 10, oh guys, when I look at this pile, you need to go out and read these books. Like, they are so good. The other ones also, but these books are so freaking good. So good. Some of my favorite authors and some like brand new authors. So we have Strange Sally Diamond. A shout out to Amanda Lanfers, who told me to read this book. And when I said, oh, is it a mystery? She's like, kind of. I get it now. I do. I get it. Our main character is the strange Sally Diamond. She's definitely neurodivergent. And or she was traumatized as a child. And so the way that she interacts with the world is very interesting. She is a very lovable character, and her adopted father has been joking with her for years about, when I die, just throw me out with the trash. So she does. She burns him in a burn barrel. And then there's like an investigation, and more comes out about who Sally is, where she came from, because her parents were like child psychologists, and so they adopted her, like the situation they adopted her from. There's also a current story happening. It is interesting. And honestly, I don't feel like it really wraps up that much, but this was a crazy book. And I cannot give away more without spoiling it completely. Broken Country, also going to be probably one of the best books of 2025. Like, I'm waiting for Book of the Month to like crown their winner. I think they do it in February now. They used to do it in December. And I would not be surprised if this was it. It starts with the most epic line. The farmer is dead. He is dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him. And honestly, that had me hooked the whole way. It's not very long, and it doesn't even feel like that much happens in this book, but there's like reveal after reveal in the end. Like, you kind of have whiplash. I really liked this. I feel like our characters are so well developed too. And this was a really interesting one to talk about in a book club. So if your book club has not read Broken Country yet, this is a really good one. So A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. This was a highly anticipated book for me because she's an automatic read for me. So Adrienne Young wrote Fable and Namesake, which are 2 YA books that I just love so much. I just love them so much. She has some that I don't love, but those ones really got me into her. And then she switched to adult. And she writes these like ominous books that have just an element of magic in them that are not really fantastical. And I love them so much. So if you have not heard of The Unmaking of June Farrow, you should probably read that. That's maybe one of my favorite books of all time. It's so good. So A Sea of Unspoken Things was definitely on the list, and it did not disappoint. So James goes back to her small town after finding out that her brother was murdered, and she's trying to figure out, he died under suspicious circumstances, and she's trying to figure out what happened. And when she's there, she has to confront her past because she runs into an old lover. And it was so good. Her writing is so good, and they're not long books. I don't know how she puts so much into this small book and edits herself so well that there's not like extra. A lot of people cannot edit themselves. I have 2 books in this pile that I don't have right now. And this one I don't own purposely because Jamie forced me to listen to it. And thank goodness she did. Please, please, please read this book before the movie comes out. And by read, I mean listen to it. You really have to listen to it. And when you do, you'll be like, oh, I know why. So I was like part ways into the book already and I was like, I do not get why she wants me to listen to this. Like the audiobook reader is great, but I could have read this. And then the thing happens and you're like, oh, I get it. And that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is coming out this year. I'm so excited because they cast Ryan Gosling as our main character. And I feel like he has just enough like gravitas and humor to like really carry off this book. This book is amazing. And it's one of those things that like when you read it, you want to tell everyone you know to read it, but you also don't want to spoil anything. So it's like, please read it so we can talk about it. Pretty please. Pretty please. So our main character is a science teacher who is recruited by the US government to help with a problem. The earth is dying and there's not much time to fix it. So like everyone comes together and then he ends up in space and he has to save the world and other things happen. And I don't want to give any more away, but this book is hopeful and depressing and delightful and serious and just truly interesting and just like piques your imagination. Like it's so good. I think Mabel is snoring, so forgive the noise. I never thought that I would put a pregnancy trope book this high on a list. This is like my 6th book of the year. Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young is a pregnancy trope done right. This is the most beautiful romance. I love it so much. So our main characters, Win and Bo, have a one-night stand and she gets pregnant. And they like act like such adults about it and there's like not miscommunications and it's just well done. I just love it so much. I tried to read the next book in what's loosely a series and it didn't hit the same way, but this one is perfection. Like absolute perfection. So if you like a pregnancy trope, I think you'll love this. If you don't, maybe give it a try. I keep trying to love a pregnancy trope, but it is hard. It's hard. One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. Oh, this book is so good. So I think I read this in June with all the other books that I loved the most. And I have read all of Carly Fortune's books. And I would say, so Every Summer After and One Golden Summer are the same characters. They are making a show called Every Year After, I believe. I'm very interested. Her second book, Meet Me at the Lake, was not my favorite. Her third, This Summer Will Be Different, is epic. So 3 out of 4 of her books were 5 stars, like unputdownable. This was one that like everyone at work has read this and some people didn't know that it was part of a series. So that was a good surprise for them. And like, I mean, we were desperately trying to finish this like between seeing patients because these books are so good. It's so good. And yeah, like the premise was good. It was fun. It feels like you're at a cottage. And I think this is set somewhere on the East Coast, but like it's got Michigan vibes. So I just felt like a summer in Michigan where you're falling in love. Oh, so good. Best of the romantasy this year is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. The second book comes out April 7. Most anticipated book of the year, maybe. So our main character's sister is supposed to be like given away in marriage, and instead she is. And so she goes to this place that has these like beasts. I own the book, but I think someone's borrowing it from me right now, so I don't have the physical copy here. And there's So there are like these beasts that like are attacking their camp. There's a lot of like lore that we're trying to find out. The person who's like guarding her is like the king's second. She's got a lot of chemistry with him. Sorry, the prince's second. The king, we don't really like meet until way in the end, and he's might be evil. We don't know. We don't know what anybody's motivations are. The prince, who she's supposedly married to, she spends like no time with him at all. Like she doesn't know him. But his daughter, she's getting very fond of. And this like second in command, the bodyguard, there's a lot of feelings. And yeah, I don't want to tell you anymore, but I loved it. I loved it so much. Maybe I'll reread it. That's how I'm feeling about it. Another perfect book, These Summer Storms by Sarah McLean. I got this in July from Book of the Month, and oh my gosh, like so unassuming, I feel like, with the cover. Our main character has been like estranged from her family, and she goes back for her father's funeral and the reading of the will, and one of the stipulations of her inheriting is that she stays for, I think, just a week. And in that week, they have to unpack all this family drama. She has a one-night stand on her way in, and shocker, that guy's there too. There was so much. So this felt like a mix between, like, because there are like weird challenges that they're supposed to do. So it felt a little bit like the Inheritance Games, but also like a more adult novel. And like there was so much to keep this book moving. The romance is amazing. The smut is good. The family dynamics are good. There's so much drama. It was so good. It's like Nantucket vibes. Read this book next summer. Absolutely. Okay, for my next two. These are basically neck and neck. They're different genres, so I feel the same about them. I feel like I've told more people about these books than, honestly, like the first three. I've been just like telling people to read these books all year. And these last two books, I read one in January and one in February, and like what a way to freaking kick off your year. And when I read them, I was like, I think these are the best books I'm gonna read this year, which is a little bit sad in January and February, but also like you can just tell when you like imprint on a book. So only because it's historical fiction, and you'll see with the next book. But The Frozen River is my number 2 pick of the year. This book is amazing. Already most of my coworkers have read this because it is about a real life midwife set in the 1700s. She left a bunch of journals behind. So this like historical fiction book is based off of a lot of facts. So our main character is in 1740s, I think, Virginia. I'm not sure exactly where she is. But her relationship with her husband and her kids is super interesting. Her relationship with the community, and we open on a murder mystery. And so not only do we get absolutely amazing like views into being a midwife, as well as her own history and her sexual history, and as a child and as a mother. But we also get, she is like a witness because she's like she's like the medical expert. And it's super interesting. And so we're trying to unpack like, who did this murder? Was this murder okay? Like, what's all been happening in the town? This book is so good. I've actually read other books by Ariel Lawhan. Well, I don't know how to say it. And I did not, like, they were fine, but I didn't love them. This book is amazing. So, and also, please, look how beautiful this cover is. Such a perfect January read. So, you should read it. Apparently it won NPR Best Book of 2023. So I do think I was late to read it. Yeah, 2023. If she reads more books like this, I will read them. Historical fiction is not my go-to. So to have a book 2 of the year as historical fiction is wild. Wild. I would like to read you a quote. So for my favorite books, I write down quotes, so like favorite of the month. And so this was my favorite January book. So from Frozen River, the act of mothering is not limited to the bearing of children. Yes. There were so many poignant moments, and as a labor and delivery nurse, it was so interesting. I know that you can read Martha Ballard's actual journals, and maybe I will, because this is very interesting. There's also like a fight over land. There's a lot of, there's so much in this book. Please read it. Not a dry historical fiction. So just slightly edging out the Frozen River is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I've now read, I think, only 2 books by Lane Fargo, and I've given both of them 5 stars. The Favorites is a story of ice dancers who are in love and all the drama that happens between them over like 20 years. This book was immaculate. And if you grew up in the situation that I grew up in, where we watched USA Gymnastics and ice skating, that was like what we watched. They were gods to us. This was especially like coming off of like the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan drama. Like this book had such an ominous feeling over it the whole time. Like you knew something bad was going to happen to these characters. And it is both story and there are these interludes in between that are like a documentary that they're making about the characters. And so it'll just be like interviews and you know something happened to these characters, but you don't know what. And so it's just that, it's that constant feeling of being on the edge of your seat. And the intense feelings between these characters and like the drama that they grew up in and like just the spotlight of being in competition and then competing against each other and being with different partners and won't they? This book was so good. I read it. I would have read it in one sitting, but I think I had to like live my life, unfortunately. And this was the January 2025 book of the month, but I read it in February and it was perfection. It's my book of the year. Favorites. And you better believe I'm going to keep my eye out on Lane Fargo because if you can write a book like this and the cover, look at this cover. I had a really good year. I had a really good year of reading. My average rating was like 4.58, which, I mean, if you look at these books, like that's so many 5-star books.